second or third highest
she was out
fire
of town.
alarm total over the course
Track
of the
that
year in
down
my
or something, I
residence
don't know.
mouth.
All right.
And, so the next year they hired these huge
Ready?
guys to be
Ready?
our aides.
Yep.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the regular school committee meeting of Monday, August 21st, 2017. This is your notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. We'll start with our business agenda tonight and item number 1, personnel introduction. Assistant Superintendent Regan.
Hi, thank you, Chairman Withers. Tonight we have Laura DeSimone. She is the Data and Accountability Coordinator. We'll be introducing the K-12 Education Technology Coordinator at another event,
Okay.
another night. But first I'd like to introduce Laura DeSimone. She has been with us for 16 years as an educator in the district. She has taught math and science at Coelho in grades 6, 7, and 8. She, prior to coming to Attleboro, she has spent 4 years in the military and 7 years in the IT world. So while she has been in Attleboro, she's used data extensively in her classroom to help inform her instruction and to help make her students successful. So we are lucky to have Laura DeSimone here tonight with us. Laura? Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for
Thank you,
coming.
thank you. Chairman Withers, members of the school committee, Superintendent Sawyer, and Assistant Superintendent Regan. Thank you for this opportunity to serve as the new K-12 Data and Accountability Coordinator. I am proud to call Attleboro my home for nearly the last 20 years. For the last 16 years, I've been a math and science teacher at Coelho Middle School, and my kids go to school at Wamsutta Middle School. Having personal and professional connections to this great city, I understand how Attleboro Public Schools students' academic achievements positively impact their lives and the welfare of the greater community. Attleboro Public Schools has demonstrated commitment to providing quality education through innovative, progressive, and ambitious learning experiences. And I'm really thrilled to serve in this capacity as a member of the central office team. In addition to my classroom management skills and teaching skills, I bring leadership, team building, and communication skills from my time spent as a United States Army officer and in working in the information technology field. These experiences afforded me opportunities to work with a really wide variety of culturally, racially, ethnically, and economically diverse people, and hone the fundamental skills and learning tools needed to succeed in this position. As Attleboro Public Schools evolves to its fuller potential, it will require a focused, committed, and collaborative effort from every employee. And as the K-12 Data and Accountability Coordinator, I will promptly and effectively communicate with supervisors and colleagues to ensure timely, accurate, and thorough reports for submission to both the district and the state. Because I appreciate the impact of these reports they can have on funding, budgets, planning, resources, and of utmost important public opinion of the Attleboro Public Schools, these reports will be informative, detailed, comprehensive, clear, and engaging for all stakeholders. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it, and I'm really excited about this new opportunity and committed to continuing my work here in the Attleboro Public School System. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome to the administration. I know I don't need to say welcome to the Attleboro schools, but welcome to the central office administration. I think you're going to be a great addition. We look forward to working with you. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I just want to say that I know that she will be sorely missed at Coelho.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, again, welcome. We look forward to working with you, and good luck on your first year.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Yep.
Big learning curve. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Second item on our agenda tonight is a school year opening update. I'll turn it over to the superintendent to give us a status report.
Thank you, Chairman. We've been very busy at central office this summer, making preparations for the start of the 17-18 academic year. As you are all well aware, that kicks off next week, and I'm happy to report that we think we're in good shape for being ready for that. It's a major undertaking to get a district of this size off the ground in a clean fashion, and while there will always be bumps along the way, we did a good job last year, and we have every expectation that this year will be strong as well. Our principals and assistant principals joined us on August 7th. They're back full-time and have been busy working with the staff in their building. We've been meeting with the principals in preparation for the year and the initiatives to come, and we think that we have some good things planned and that we're going to make some real progress this year, as we do every year. I'd like to call on my colleagues to give you some specific updates on some of the particular activities that we've been engaged in.
So as part of the professional development that we provided for the principals this past summer, these past 2 weeks, we've been preparing our teachers for the first day or the second day of school for our first day of Engage Attleboro, which is our new professional development. Teachers will be participating in different pathways based upon their choice, from inclusive practices to ELL. So that'll be the first day, but principals have also been planning for our community engagement practices for the professional development throughout the rest of the school year. For enrollment, we've registered during open registration, we registered about 144 students, which is consistent with the numbers that we had last year for open registration. Since then, we've registered more than 20 students since the close of open registration, so which is consistent with the numbers that we had last year between the weeks where open registration closed and the start of school. So we'll be taking new kids as they come in. There are some grades that are tight, and we're working with that and trying to make the best decisions possible for all students and for the buildings. For HR personnel, we've added 10 new positions to our system, 5 of which are from the collective bargaining agreement that we have with the AEA, and then the others are for various other reasons due to enrollment and things like that. There are 26 positions total that we've added, so the other 15 positions are for retirements, resignations, and then just people taking other positions within the district and then having us needing to fill those positions.
So is that 26 new people, but 10 new positions? Is that?
Correct.
Okay. Which one?
And of those 10, how many are teaching positions versus an ABA or a paraprofessional?
Those are teaching positions.
All teaching.
Yeah.
And have there been any other positions added for support staff?
There have been some added, but we've been adding them slowly based upon need.
Gotcha.
You mentioned that there are some grades that are, or schools that are tight. Are there any specific grades or buildings that are specifically tight or that you're watching?
We're currently watching all grade levels, but specifically, we're looking closely at grade 6 right now. That's a tight grade level, and
At all 3 schools?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the closest one right now.
Going into the summer, grade 7 was the tightest, but that's one of the places where we had to add a position to bring those numbers down, and so now grade 6 is the leader in the clubhouse.
That was going to actually be my next question is the 10 new teaching positions, where, if you could tell us where those have been allocated, not necessarily the schools, but grade levels or school levels.
Yep. So most of them went to elementary, a couple of them went to middle, and then a couple of them went to high school.
So we had an obligation to increase the staff at our elementary schools to provide the increase in planning time that's required under the new collective bargaining agreement. So that's why half went right to that issue.
Are those the additional special teachers, specialists?
Yes.
So there are 5 additional specialists at the elementary schools?
Correct.
And then 5 teachers spread through the other grades. Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
You mentioned that we had an increase in enrollment anywhere 120 to 140. How many students have either moved out of the district or moved to other options? So has there been a net gain or a net loss, or, about the same number of students?
We're so transient, it's
Okay.
hard to keep track of who's coming and who's going, and I'm sure there'll be students that, within the first 10 days that will realize are no longer students here with us in Attleboro, so.
So just like there will be students who register for school in the days approaching the start and even after school starts,
Yep.
there will be students who, were in Attleboro this year or last year who moved to another district and registered late there, and that's why it wouldn't even have hit our radar yet that they've gone. So it usually takes until about mid-September to really know where our enrollment is in any given school and grade. Takes a little bit of time to sort that out.
When is it set for the state, like for as far as funding and whatnot?
October 1.
Mr. Storrs?
With the contractual obligation for the specials, can you speak to that a little bit? What's the changes going on in the specials for the elementary?
Sure. They're getting one more planning period per week, which brings them up to the same level of planning time that we provide for teachers at the middle school level, so there's a little bit more equity there. So to provide that, we had to increase the specialist by 1 in each building. That one person then is able to provide basically 1 extra prep period for each teacher in the building. And we're really excited because that allowed us to add a PE teacher to each school. So now we have 2 PE teachers in every school, and that means that kids are going to get 1 more gym class a week, which is a step in the right direction on that for a lot of different reasons. And we're very excited because we can expand the curriculum in that area to include, incorporate some of the social emotional learning that we want to do in our elementary schools, and that's, I think, a great place to do that.
Just follow up.
Yeah.
Sure. Good. So, in relation to the specialists, is it a block of 5 now? Is it 5 specials, including 2 PEs? Thank you.
I know a lot of the at least the initial discussion has been focused on contractual obligations and whatnot, but I think the really big win here is the benefit for the kids, right? We get an access to another caring adult in the building, another potential mentor, increased access to physical education, both from that, as you mentioned, the social emotional piece that we're seeing in a lot of districts, and that's been a focus of the statewide, but also, just that health and wellness, making sure that they're getting, additional opportunities for activity. So I think it's, while it's been framed kind of in a contractual piece and providing planning time, it's a win-win for the classroom teacher, but also for the kids because it's another guaranteed specialist. So I think it's excellent.
Mr. Storrs?
So, something that I was just thinking about, I know that for the specials for PE, it's pretty much 5 days a week, every period, normally. So adding in a second PE, so how are they going to handle the logistics of it as far as classroom space?
So there are, we have 5, well, I guess we have 4 different designs. Hill Roberts and Hyman Fine are pretty much the same thing, but the different schools have different space constraints, and so each one has its own plan for how to make use of that person. It really varies from school to school how they're going to handle that.
Okay. Anything else on the school year opening update? Not counting transportation, which we have a whole other agenda.
Yes, that we'll save that for a little bit later in the agenda. But Mr. Vitale is also going to talk a little bit. Well, we have, I guess, budget on the agenda too. So maybe just a facilities update.
Sure. So we're going to cut this into 2 pieces. We have the capital projects funded by the city that are going extremely well. I have a kind of a summary memo to pass around. But both the air conditioning and the boilers are complete. There's a process of commissioning the heating systems that has to take place, but the actual labor, the welding, the pipes, the boilers, that's all done. Hyman Fine and Hill Roberts are about 90% complete in the boiler work. The air conditioning unit for Phil Roberts hasn't shown up yet, but once that's in, that's a 3 or 4 day project. We're not worried about that at all. And then the hot water heaters at Wamsutta and Brennan are sort of where our focus is right now. That's a requirement to have hot water if the building's to be occupied. So we're making sure that we're able to accommodate that. We don't have any concern over not being able to meet that obligation. So those projects are going well. We did some additional ceiling work on Brennan and Wamsutta in terms of the roofs leaking around the main windows that service the main foyer in the lobby. Quite a bit of work over the summer on that. And then the Studley facade work, we went out to bid twice on that. Mr. Tyler refused to submit a bid, so we didn't. No, I'm just kidding. We had nobody participate in the bid process both times, unfortunately. So we're going to take a different tack. We're keeping the project as is, but the district will act as the GC and solicit pricing on the various aspects of the job and go at it that way. So that was supposed to be done in September. It now looks like it's sort of October, early November, because we've been going out twice. We just got nobody to bite on the opportunity.
But that work was going to be done during the school year anyway, so having it stretch into the school year isn't a concern.
Right, no.
Mrs. Storrs?
Just a quick update on the Finberg facility. What's our expectation regarding the plan for that?
Yep, we've had communication with BICO, and I think they're feeling solid about end of calendar year. I think that's, so, they had anticipated that fairly early on, and that hasn't moved in months. So, we have that building ready to go. Overall, in our general maintenance and preparation of our facilities, we've had a very, very good summer. We've got a lot of bigger projects that are going to push into September. The energy management systems in Willett, the variable drives in Willett, the gym floors where the vendor had a scheduling issue. The high school's done. The other buildings are going to be done during September. But the overall, cleaning up and maintaining of the buildings is actually ahead of schedule. We had a great bit of assistance at Brennan with Fred Souza, who kept his staff out a week longer than usual. So we had more time in between the groups occupying the building in the summer and the start of his staff wanting to get going. And because of that, we got a real good jump on that building. That's usually a problem going into the month of September, but that's actually done, and we're pretty happy about that. So, there'll still be a lot of activity. We did some lighting upgrades. The stage at Studley still hasn't been put up yet, but will be. And then as we get later into the fall, the food service lines in the elementary schools will start.
Thank you. And I'll repeat what I said last month, since it's the summer and, not everyone watches every meeting, that, I think this is an important report to show the ongoing maintenance and capital work that's done at the buildings throughout the year, throughout every year, especially, in light of a lot of the dialogue about the high school, and that, our staff does do a good job maintaining these buildings, and a lot of work and money goes into them, and, make sure that we thank the facility staff for the hard work that they do. Any other comments or questions, Mr. Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank Mr. Vitato. I mean, I think everybody has to realize with all the work that we're doing for the high school project, and then to take all this on in the same time frame is, it's a lot of work. I'd like to thank the city for finally funding this. It's long overdue with these schools, and I think all the improvements that you put in front of us tonight are going to be a huge benefit for the students and the faculty of all these buildings. I think my second question would be for Superintendent Sawyer, and maybe it's out there, I haven't been able to check my email today. Is the trimester schedule for the high school been set as of today? Trimester one?
I do not know whether or not they have released schedules, which is what I assume you mean. I mean,
Yeah.
the schedule's been in place for quite some time, and they make changes along the way, and they'll actually continue making changes well into the trimester. But it is around this time of year that they say, okay, well, this is where we're going to go with in terms of what we send home. And then there'll be another round of changes that happen between that and the actual first day of school. So I'm not sure which day it was.
Okay. And just last question, Mr. Chairman. Because of the transportation kind of policy, we're expecting more of an influx of maybe walkers or people being driven, students being driven to the school. So is there any type of secondary plans where we thought of alleviating some of that disaster out in the morning? I mean, it's tough out there. So I'm just thinking, has there been any thought, or we want to see actually what the response is first before we have to maybe adjust something? I mean, like I know, some people use Caper and Park, some people use Bushby, some use Rathburn Boulevard Drive. I mean, the only thing I got in the email was to expect that there's going to be probably a higher velocity of traffic in the morning for the high school. So anybody thought of anything else we can be thinking out of the box about, or?
I can tell you that in terms of fee-for-service signups, we're pretty much on par with last year. So whatever the experience was in the second half of the year at the high school, that's probably close to where we're at right now.
Which was much better than okay.
I mean, at the start of the year, you always have a new freshman class that hasn't really learned. Yeah, I mean, the protocols and the first month takes a little bit of patience, but if there's an issue that emerges at the high school or any school, we'll certainly get involved and do what we need to do to smooth it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, does the influx of the students, more students become eligible to get their license year, I mean, you graduated, most of the people will be driving in. Does that have any impact on the traffic flow in the mornings, or is it negligible? So right now, you'll have most of the kids who are coming in don't have, your senior class may or may not have the license, or the junior class, I forget where it falls, but you graduated, a huge portion of the people eligible to have their license. Does the increase in, through the course of the year, as more students get their licenses, does that have any impact on the traffic in addition to busing, or is it?
I would say you have multiple variables. So
Okay.
You start the year, the folks driving in are probably less than they'll be in June,
Okay,
but they're also, as we just said, less cognizant of what the rules are.
yeah,
So you have a higher degree of chaos, which leads to, some problems. And then, what always happens is as the year goes on, more students get their license.
Yep.
You see participation in the buses go down, and in May, people are saying, why is that bus empty?
Yeah,
Well, it's because
okay.
they're all driving.
Yeah.
But, so there are more cars, but they sort of have it figured out now, so there's less chaos.
yeah.
That's sort of the ebb and flow of a school year, at the high school anyway, in terms of transportation and driving.
Anything else? All right, that will wrap up the school year opening update. Thank you. MSBA AHS project update. Just briefly, as was reported in the paper, we continue to make tweaks to the plans as we've done all along. As we get feedback from the state and as we get feedback from community members and the architects, we make changes. Which are relatively small changes, which we've been doing all along and will do until we get a final plan approved. There's been no major changes to the plans, and I don't anticipate there being many at this point. The plan that was submitted, the SBC feels is the most educationally sound and fiscally appropriate. There's not a more modest option out there. And we'll continue to we'll continue to refine. I think the right word to use is refine the plans as we go along. There will be a delegation going up on Wednesday to hear back from the state, and we anticipate, continuing along the process. Anything else to add?
No, I think that it's important to know that we have an educational program which is our expression of what we value and the programming that we envision the school having, and we've done nothing to shy away from delivering on that plan. So the schematic design or the conceptual design that's under consideration right now represents our best thinking about how to deliver the educational program as approved by the school committee.
Mr. Larson?
Will you hear back on Wednesday? I know there was a presentation made at one of the past meetings in Boston about the size of some of the CTE classrooms, and I know the city was requesting a larger funding ratio for some of those larger CTE classrooms. Have we heard back, or are you expecting to hear back on Wednesday from that, or?
I don't think we'll hear on Wednesday per se, but Wednesday we do anticipate that we'll be cleared to continue in the process and get into some of those details. In that particular issue, and it was one of the things that we definitely talked about when we were up there, is that the state has not developed appropriate guidelines for CTE spaces, and so they're applying normal academic classroom space numbers to programs that they know can't be served in that kind of a space. So when we ask about it, they tell us, we take care of that later. So at this point, we're just being patient, because they have said no about some things, and they aren't saying no about that, which is a strong indication that they understand that there's an issue there.
Yeah, if you're teaching plumbing or if you're teaching English, one might take a little more space than the other.
Don't tell an English teacher, but
She'll find me.
Mr. Quinn?
And just to kind of piggyback off that point, there is an example of past practice, because, while there aren't a lot of, comprehensive high schools left in the state, there are, several vocational schools, Minuteman, I think, being one, who have just gone through this process. So there's some sort of past practice where they were able to take the CTE space into consideration. So it's not like we're just, hoping. There's some sort of, evidence from previous processes that leads us to believe.
yeah,
that
it's
this
not
is-
just a prayer.
Yeah.
There's past practice.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, the other thing I wanted to ask you two follow-up questions. There were originally, 10+ options or proposals that have been fielded for this project? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there were more than 10, because the ones that were initially whittled down to consider, there were, I think, 9 plus a repair that got extensive review, and that was after there being a few additional before. So I think you could say 10 plus is accurate.
And so I guess the point I'm trying to make, just to clarify here, is that there have been a lot of, I think the idea that's been floated out of there, well, we need more options. There's been a lot of options, and I think the SBC has done a conscientious job of trying to whittle down the best of all the options that are available to, one that is both educationally sound and fiscally responsible. The other question that I have is, on the website, comprehensive detailing, all the information you could possibly want about this project is on the city website. Would that be a fair
Yes.
assessment? Okay, so if somebody wanted more information about the project, it'd be easy to find on the website.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think to your first question, I think that, there are a lot of questions of people saying, well, why aren't there more options, and why aren't there other options being considered? And, that work has already been done, and that work was done extensively, a lot of work, a lot of hours by a lot of people. It's just at that point, it didn't have the publicity, so people, I don't think, were as aware of what was going on. But, absolutely, there were many options that were given a lot of consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To piggyback on what both of you brought up, and you did a much better politically correct job of stating it than what I'm going to state it. When you read in the paper that, we might need a Plan B. Plan B, are you kidding me? We know what Plan B is. Plan B is a full renovation, and we know the cost of a full renovation. I mean, people have to get through their head. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to vote on this issue, but a renovation is very, very expensive, and it's not reimbursable by the MSBA. I mean, we have to get that through our heads. Not only that, the way it upsets this whole school system, the amount of time that it would take. Once a renovation starts on a school, we have to get the school up to the general code, the current code. Handicaps, everything else. It's not a question of when a major component in this high school is going to fail. It's not if, it's when. And I think people got to get by that. You know, when I hear there wasn't a plan B, there's always been a plan B, just as well as you alluded to. There's been multiple plans, and they're much more expensive, they're much more invasive, and they're not conductive to student learning. We basically can renovate all we want, and we're not going to get the learning aspect that the plans call for of the option that was chosen. So I kind of disagree with reading those letters in the paper about that. If we need more options, we put plenty of options on the table. We've come up with the best option to be, to serve the students and the faculty of Attleboro. And I do appreciate you guys, kind of putting a little bit better, but realistically, like I said, it's just, we've put it out there many times. Very expensive, and if we do not go with a new high school, it's coming soon. Those renovations, they're going to be very costly and very invasive. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Larson?
Just in complete agreement with what Mike said, and, I get into a number of conversations with people, and I try to explain to them that voting no really isn't an option, because you're either going to vote yes now or vote no now, or you're going to vote yes later. Because it's either $135 million next spring or $185 million in a couple years. There's really no zero vote. And I think people just have to come to terms with that.
Mr. Quinn?
And I think to piggyback off that, what you'd be getting for your 185, at least it's been explained to me, is that yes, structurally, the building would be sound. It'd be a repair. There'd be sprinklers, the ADA compliant. But when you looked at the building, there wouldn't be those cosmetic. It wouldn't communicate to the students and the faculty and anybody who walked in here that education's important. It would look more like some of the more rundown buildings that you see in more urban centers. And I think that's important to note. You're paying more to get less if you delay. And I think if you look at some of the history of the discussion that's gone on over the last 20 years or so, the indication that this project's only going to get more expensive the longer we wait.
I would just add that in the vein that you're on, that the value of the building you're purchasing for that money is much less under the repair option. It's also not a 50-year option.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a 50-year solution to our problem. So not only is it the same dreary building, just structurally sound and to code, but it also is going to fail sooner and become a problem for the community sooner down the line than the long-term solution.
Yeah, I mean, the Attleboro schools have a strategic plan that was developed by the community members, the educators, administrators, school committee. We have an education plan that was developed by the school and approved by the school committee, and the school building committee, took a lot of time to review plans and choose the plan that takes those concerns and those documents into account and will allow us to provide the education and the learning experiences that we want to. And it does so in a manner that is the cheapest option to the residents of the city of Attleboro of any of the other options. It's pay less now for a solution that'll last longer and that will accomplish the goals that we've set, or pay more in 3, 5, 6 years for a solution that won't last as long and doesn't take those goals into account. I mean, when you phrase it like that, and you get beyond the fact that no one likes to pay an increase in taxes, there's not a real choice here. There's going to be a lot of dialogue and discussion about this, but that's, where I see the reality of the situation. Mr. Geddes?
Two points. Something that Mr. Sawyer just said, I think it's important to realize that, well, I'll take a step back. The whole idea of a plan B, an interesting perspective I saw on this, and I don't remember who it was, but someone said that we're in plan B. Plan A was contacting MSBA about repairing this building. MSBA looked at it and said, that doesn't make sense. You should look into getting a new one. Repairing was Plan A, and it didn't make sense. That's why we're looking at new. So in a way, we are at Plan B, which has now become Plan A. Plan B being letting everything fail and paying that close to $200 million worth of repairs for 10 more years of this building, and then having to pay a much higher amount for a brand new building. Because when this building first was looked at 10 or 20 years ago, it was going to be about half as much to do the work needed. So if we're looking to spend $196 million and the cost 10 or 20 years, $196 million to repair this building as it is, and then in 10 or 20 years look at building a new one because everything's in rough shape again, now that $135 million we would be contributing for a new building is up to $270 million. So now we're looking at close to $500 million over the course of 20 years to invest in an inefficient, educationally unsound building for 25 years of service, then getting a new one, or just paying a much more reasonable price, $135 million, for a building that will last far longer than that. We're at Plan B now, but it's a very effective plan, I think, for what the city needs and what the students deserve.
Mr. Storrs?
Can you, if you know, could you speak to what is the timeline regarding the special election, everything that has to happen between now and then, as well as what our relationship would be to the specific wording of the proposition?
So as to the first question, the rough timeline that we've been working on and that we're still on pace for is we get invited to continue on when, not invited, but told to continue on Wednesday or soon thereafter. We continue to refine the plans and go to schematic design, where we really refine the plans and make them specific, and present that to the state for their December board meeting, which is sometime around December 20th. And then we have 120 days to prove to the state that we can fund the project. So we would have to pass, we would have to have an override vote within 120 days, or debt exclusion vote, excuse me, within 120 days. So it would be sometime in March, maybe April, is when we'd be looking at for a vote. The council has to vote to put it on, to hold the special election. And as far as the wording, I don't know the answer to that at this point, but I can find out.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? That'll conclude the MSBA. What I said would be a brief update. I guess we had some things to get off our chests, so. Next on the agenda, update end of fiscal year 2017. Mr. Furtado?
Mr. Chairman, we're essentially where we left off at the end of June. We've got about $500,000 of encumbrances that need to be closed out. That's something that's done on the city side once the year ends. That's not us. We have a current end of year balance at $427,000. 23 of that is going to be returned to the city in transportation funds, leaving a balance of 404, and then from that we're going to have to deduct $67,000 for unanticipated retirement costs, leaving our balance somewhere in the low 330s, which is about at this point $40,000 below where we were last year. But we're going to be getting a little bit of a rebound from the closing out of the encumbrances, but we'll probably most likely be below where we were last year.
Below meaning less money left
The
over.
363, yes, less money than last year.
And that works out to about what percent again of the?
It's half.
It's less than half.
less than half 1%. Any questions or comments, Mr. Larson?
My only comment is just to congratulate Mr. Furtado, because I know there's been a lot of turnover in his office this year, and the amount of work that has to get done through there, so I just wanted to publicly thank him for that.
As I said last month, I don't know how you do it, but you know, to consistently come in so close when you can't go under with such tight budget constraints is you know, a job well done. Thank you. Now that we've buttered you up a little bit, we'll keep you on the clock. Transportation update.
Sure. I'm feeling very good about transportation. I understand you may have some calls, but we were able to go find that three-legged fish. We're very happy to have Crystal Enos here as the coordinator for transportation. She's going to do a tremendous job. She has 15 years as the owner of a transportation company that served the Westport School District, the special needs students. She has a real deep sensitivity to the needs of special needs students. She understands scheduling, drivers, all of the things that you know are hard to find. She's being supported by Doreen DeRose, who applied for the clerical position in that office, and Doreen is, you know, one of our best. So the transition was rough. You know, the former operations manager left in a bit of a haste. Didn't leave a lot of instructions on where things were or how to do things, and so back in the first week in August, we were starting to experience some backup on the phones. We made a commitment to getting the fee-for-service people in, which we've done. When they came on board, our registration number was 363, something like that. It's now over 1,100. We ignored the frozen period, so those people are all on buses. And we are, with the return of Tim on the 17th, started working on the out-of-district, which is in pretty solid shape. If we have a concern right now, it has to do with ELC, but we have extra time to deal with that because they start later. But right now, you shouldn't be getting a lot of current concerns about transportation. And if you are, please call me.
Just a quick question. When does the schedule go in the paper?
We submitted the routes to the Sun on the 13th or 14th. I don't know when the published date is.
I think it's any day now. I forget actually. I think it's any day now.
That's been submitted, so it should be coming out shortly.
Yep. Provided them to the schools on the 14th as well.
And how do they go out other than the Sun Chronicle? How
We
else?
post them on our website.
Are they up now?
I believe they are. Are they?
I thought it was, I thought it was the 16-17 school year, it said.
I'll check. We finalized them on the 14th.
Okay. I might have been looking at the wrong area, but, okay.
Right. But they either are or will be on the website, and
We have them, yeah.
they will be going in the Sun Chronicle, okay. Any other questions about transportation? No? All right, well, good luck, and we're glad to hear that you found a team to work with, and that
was
the
ready.
calls
He was ready.
got returned. And we'll look forward to a smooth beginning of the year. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 6 and add a new item. We'll be removing item 6, agreements, as it's not ripe for consideration at this time, and then we'd be adding an item for the letter to the state delegation regarding the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Education Assessment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the next item on our agenda will be letters to our state delegation regarding the Massachusetts Consortium for Education Innovative Assessment. And I'll turn it over to Superintendent Sawyer just to explain a little bit what this is about, what he's done, and then I can explain what this would be doing.
So Attleboro is one of, how many of our districts are there? 6 districts that are part of the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Education Assessment. We're committed to developing alternatives to the state's accountability system, which we think has unintended negative consequences on students. And funding for the consortium's work is largely comes from grants, but as you know, it is working for the benefit of the state as a whole, because we're trying to lead in Massachusetts for Massachusetts to make some changes. There's been support for it at the State House. Last year, there was an appropriation made by the legislature, which was vetoed by Governor Baker, and the legislature actually overrode that veto. The money did come to the consortium, but then in December, much of it was clawed back in, what are they called, 4C cuts. So we didn't really actually see that money last year, but we went at it again this year. It was again included in the budget, again was vetoed by the governor as a line item veto. So again, we're trying to get our delegation to support an override so that money can come to the consortium. And both the superintendents and union presidents of those 6 districts have all signed letters. Ms. B and myself have already submitted our letters to the delegation. And this is important work because it's helping us to develop alternative measures of school quality, which we think not only will better reflect how good of a job that Attleboro is doing, but will give parents better information about the schools that they send their kids to.
And just following up on that, you know, the letters were circulated today, and it's really one letter to our different delegate, to the delegation, supporting our superintendent and our teachers association, and also, you know, we've talked about several times how standardized testing isn't the most effective, nearly the most effective means of measuring student achievement, and you know, this venture collaboration that Attleboro is a part of is a way to try and find a more effective way to test student achievement, and you know, just asking our delegation to support those efforts, I think, is a worthwhile cause. Yeah, Mr. Storrs.
So, if I may, thank you, sir. When we signed up for this, it was, you know, we understood that there is a cost associated in being part of the consortium, but of course, that would be covered by the funding that the state was giving to them. Last year, when that funding was, as you indicated, clawed back, how was that compensated?
A reduction in what the consortium was able to accomplish.
And that would be the same case
Yes.
this year. So if they were to pull back all of the funding, as is the case as it stands now, would...
So most of the money actually is coming from grants from other sources.
Okay.
So that money's secured, I forget exactly, is it 3 or 5 years worth of money that's already in place? 3 years. So we've got this year and another year to ensure that some of the work is going to happen no matter what, and a significant portion of it. To be honest, you know, this money is less than some of the other sources, but I think it's not just you know, financially important, but it's symbolically important for the state to be participating in this effort.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Mr. Quinn.
And in the big scope of the state budget, this is a small amount of money.
Mhm.
It's unfortunately one that Governor Baker tends to target every year, but one that could slip under the radar if we're not bringing it to our legislature, our legislative delegation's attention. I think it's appropriate that, you know, our new data and accountability coordinators here today, because this is the type of new data that we want to provide to tell a different story about Attleboro Public Schools. And so this funding is critical for helping to close that perception gap that we've been working so hard to communicate to neighboring communities across state lines, and you know, communities that don't have much knowledge about Attleboro, to, you know, to again, tell the story of the great things that are going on here. So, we would appreciate the support from our delegation and with their colleagues just to continue what they've done last year. So, I hope we'll support it, and they'll continue to support it.
Mr. Geddes?
I'm a big fan of the quote, and I'm struggling to remember the details of it, but you can't judge a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree. And I think a lot of our standardized tests do that. So I'm excited to see such an effort to reassess how we assess student improvement, student learning. So hopefully this goes through.
All right, so I'd entertain a motion just authorizing me to sign these letters and submit them to our delegation.
So
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, we have minutes from the July 17th, 2017 meeting. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda. Motion to accept the donation in the amount of $5.17 from the Kula Foundation for deposit into the Studley Gift and Donation Account number F2112.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Open forum. Is there anyone here who would like to address the school committee at open forum? All right, and that will close open forum. Then next, we're going to have an executive session. The Attleboro School Committee will convene an executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A2 and 3, to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with union personnel and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, respectively, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee. The school committee will not reconvene in open session. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
Mr. Tyler?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes. Mrs. Scales?
Yes.
Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Mrs. Sawyer?
Yes.
All right, we will take a 2-minute recess and reconvene in executive session.